3 times he swore that he did not know Jesus. He recanted 3 times around the campfire until the rooster crowed. But a few weeks later, the same man stands in front of thousands and preaches the crucified Christ. 3,000 believed in one day. This is the story of the greatest transformation in history, from a coward who betrayed a teacher to a martyr who was crucified upside down for his faith. This is the story of the Apostle Peter. His real name is Simon, the son of Jonah. He was born in the small town of Bethsaida, on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. His hands were rough from the nets, and his clothes smelled of fish. He was nothing but an ordinary Galilean fisherman from the most disenfranchised class in the ancient world. Galilee was despised by educated Jews. No profit comes from Galilee, the scribe said. The fishermen were at the very bottom of the social ladder, dirty, uneducated, constantly violating ritual purity due to working with dead fish. But one day everything changed. Simon and his brother Andrew were casting nets into the sea when a wandering rabbi from Nazareth approached them. Jesus looked at Simon and said the simple words, "Follow me, and I will make you a hunter of men." Something in that look, something in that voice made Simon throw the nets right into the water and follow him. He did not know that this choice would change not only his life, but the entire history of mankind. Simon quickly became one of Jesus' closest disciples. Together with James and John, they formed the inner circle, those whom Christ took to the most important events. Simon's character was fiery. He was impulsive, passionate, spoke without thinking, and acted first and then reflected. It was these traits that made him such a lively and human character in the Gospels. Do you remember the story when Jesus walked on the water during a storm? All the students in the boat were horrified to see the ghost on the waves, but Simon cried out, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Jesus said one word, "Go." And Simon got out of the boat. He really walked on the water. He walked for several steps looking at Christ. But then I looked at the waves, got scared and started to sink. "Lord, save me! Stop it!" he shouted. Jesus caught him and said, "Little one, why did you doubt?" It's very Peter, the only one who ventured out of the boat, but also the only one who started to sink. Then there was the moment at Caesarea Philippi. Jesus asked his disciples, "But who do you say I am?" And Simon, as always, was the first to blurt out, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus looked at him and said the words that sealed his fate, "You are Peter, the stone, and on this stone I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." Simon became Peter the stone, not because he was firm in character, he was just very unstable, but because Christ was going to make him that way. It was a prophecy and a promise. But just a minute later, when Jesus began to talk about his impending death, Peter grabbed him and began to rebuke him. "Be merciful to yourself, Lord. May this not happen to you." Jesus abruptly turned around. "Get away from me, Satan. You're a temptation to me." From "You are Peter, the foundation of the church," to "Get away from me, Satan," in 2 minutes. That's who Peter was, a mixture of great faith and complete misunderstanding, courage and cowardice, love and betrayal. At the Last Supper, Peter was full of confidence. When Jesus said that one of them would betray him, Peter declared loudest of all, "Even if all are offended by you, I will never be offended." Jesus looked at him with sorrow and said, "Truly I tell you, this night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter was indignant. "Even if I should die with you, I will not deny you." He really thought so. When soldiers stormed into the Garden of Gethsemane a few hours later to arrest Jesus, it was Peter who drew his sword and cut off the ear of the high priest's servant. He was ready to fight to the death. But Jesus stopped him, healed the slave, and allowed the soldiers to take him. The students scattered in panic. Peter followed from a distance, trying to figure out what was going on. A bonfire was burning in the courtyard of the high priest's house. It's a cold night. Peter went over to warm himself, trying to remain unnoticed among the servants and guards. But one of the maidservants looked into his face and said, "And this one was with Jesus of Nazareth." Peter was afraid. "I don't know what you're saying," he muttered and walked away. The first renunciation. A few minutes later, another maidservant said to those standing nearby, "This one was with Jesus of Nazareth." Peter rejected it again. "I do not know this man." The second abdication. An hour passed. The crowd around the campfire began to peer at Peter. His Galilean accent gave him away. "You are certainly one of them, for your speech also rebukes you," they told him. And then Peter began to swear and swear, "I do not know this man." The third abdication, and at that very moment a rooster crowed. Jesus was just being led through the courtyard after the interrogation. He turned his head and looked at Peter. Their eyes met. Peter saw in those eyes not anger, but pain and love, and he remembered the words, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." Peter ran out of the courtyard and wept bitterly. According to legend, he cried so hard that tears left furrows on his cheeks, and every morning, when he heard the rooster crowing, he would start crying again, remembering that night. Jesus was crucified. Peter was not at the cross. He was hiding, overcome with shame. He betrayed the teacher. He was a coward. Everything he promised turned out to be a lie. But on the third day, the women came running with incredible news. The coffin was empty. Christ is risen. Peter and John ran to the tomb. Peter, impulsive as always, flew in first. There were only funeral shrouds. The body was gone. A few days later, the 7 disciples were fishing on the Sea of Galilee. They didn't catch anything all night. At dawn, a figure appeared on the shore and shouted, "Children, do you have any food?" They said no. The man said, "Cast the net on the right side of the boat." They cast, and could not pull out the net from the multitude of fish. John cried out, "It's the Lord!" And Peter, without thinking, jumped into the water and swam to shore without waiting for the boat. A bonfire was burning on the shore. Jesus cooked fish and bread. After breakfast, he looked at Peter and asked, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than they do?" Peter replied, "So, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." The second time, "Simon Ionin, do you love me? So, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my sheep." The third time, "Simon Ionin, do you love me?" Peter was saddened that Jesus was asking for the third time. He understood. 3 questions for 3 renunciations. He replied, "Oh my God, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." The threefold abdication was erased by the threefold restoration. Peter was forgiven and called back to be a leader. The day of Pentecost, the Holy Spirit descended on the disciples like fire, and who stood up to preach in front of thousands of pilgrims in Jerusalem? Peter, the same man who was afraid of the maid at the campfire 7 weeks ago. Now he was shouting in front of the crowd, "Men of Israel, God has resurrected Jesus of Nazareth whom you crucified. We are all witnesses to this." 3,000 people believed that day. Peter became the leader of the apostles, the head of the early church. It was he who healed the lame man at the Red Gate. It was he who defended the faith before the Sanhedrin, the very court that condemned Christ. When the high priest forbade him to preach, Peter replied, "Judge, is it right in the sight of God to listen to you more than to God?" He was arrested, beaten, and thrown in jail. King Herod Agrippa ordered his execution, but an angel miraculously freed Peter from prison. Peter preached throughout the known world, in Antioch, Asia Minor, Cappadocia, Galatia, Pontus, Egypt, and Africa. He ordained bishops, founded churches, healed the sick, and raised the dead. A simple fisherman became a pillar of Christianity. Peter finally came to Rome. For 25 years he served as the first bishop of the Roman Church, preaching and strengthening the faith in the hostile pagan capital. But the persecution of Emperor Nero began. Christians were accused of setting fire to Rome. They were crucified, burned like torches, and thrown to the beasts. Roman Christians begged Peter to flee the city. Peter left Rome at night, but at the city gate he saw Jesus coming towards him. Amazed, Peter asked, "Quo vadis, Domine? Where are you going, Lord?" Christ answered, "I'm going to Rome to be crucified again." Peter understood. Christ suffers in his disciples. If Peter runs, Christ must take his place. He turned around and returned to the city. He was arrested the next day. The verdict, crucifixion. But Peter asked for one thing, to crucify him upside down, because he was not worthy to die like his teacher. 67 AD. A 70-year-old man who was once afraid of a maid now bravely goes to his death. He is crucified upside down, and in this inverted position, with blood rushing to his head, in unbearable agony, Peter dies for the one he once betrayed 3 times.